Today we have the pleasure of visiting with Don Frost. Don and Gail moved into Oklahoma City, into the Epworth, when the East Wing opened up in November of 2013. I am fascinated by the fact that Don was born in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I want to know how you made it from there to here, Don.
Well, my dad was stationed up areas with the U.S. Weather Bureau. He was a meteorologist, and he and Mom went up there in 1932. My sister was born in 1932, and then I was born in 1935. And my mother passed away in 1937, so Dad sent my sister and myself down to Oklahoma to live with an aunt in Anadarko. And we were there for probably a year and a half before Dad was transferred to Richmond, Virginia. And then we moved there with him and his new wife, my stepmother.
So how did you end up at the Naval Academy?
Well, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. And they had a height limit. I wasn't too tall, I was too short. So I came out to the University of Oklahoma for a year and a half, and during that time, they lowered the height requirement. And I received a congressional appointment and went in from that.
Awesome. Well, tell us some of the things that are memorable about that Navy experience.
Well, one of the main ones was the last ship I was on was the USS Milwaukee, and it was a replenishment oiler. I was on it for 27 months, and we operated in the North Atlantic, the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, and in the Tonkin Gulf area. And just a wonderful experience. We had a crew of about 350 people, and we replenished aircraft carriers and other ships with fuel oil, ammunition, bombs, and general supplies. We carried about 6 million gallons of fuel for other ships and for airplanes.
You were commander, right?
Yes, I was a commander at that time. Yeah.
You also told me about the time you were out of the country for 4 years.
Yeah, I had in 1964, I went to Vietnam, and from there was transferred immediately to Sasebo, Japan, and was there for 3 years. So I was out of the country for a total of 4 years. You might recall during that time we had assassinations, we had Watts, we had uprisings across the country. But we were kind of isolated from that, and when I came back to the States, I was just shocked with the change in the culture that had taken place during that time. It was amazing. Kind of like what we're going through today without the riots, I guess you'd say.
Amazing. How did you and Gail meet?
Oh, me. I moved to Houston, Texas in 1985, and started going to First Baptist Church, and they were organizing their fall Bible studies for singles. So they gave me this address, and I went to that home, knocked on the door, and Gail opened the door. So that was our first meeting. We just became best of friends after that.
Right. How many children do you have, and where are they?
Well, I have 3 children. Gail does not have any. These are from my first marriage. My son Don lives in Washington, D.C., and daughter lives in Austin, Texas. Son Mark lives right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. And so we don't get to see him very often. We have 6, 7 grandkids and 1 great-grandkid.
When did you retire from the Navy?
1980.
You were there 20 years?
20 years, yes, yes.
And after you were a young man.
Oh,
after
yeah.
you retired.
Was, yes.
After you retired from the Navy, did you go into the private sector?
Yes, I did. When I was in the Navy, they had sent me to the University of Kansas for a master's degree in petroleum management. And with that, I had a background for serving in the petroleum industry. So I went into the petroleum industry, the Gulf Coast and Arizona and out in Utah.
And what are some of the memorable moments of that career?
Well, the most memorable was in 1982. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was going to a church and received Jesus Christ as my Savior. My whole life changed at that point. My sailor's tongue was cleaned up, my alcoholism went by the wayside. And as I like to say, the Lord was cleaning me up so that I could go see Gail.
Yes. He did a good job.
Yeah, oh yeah, he did.
You had mentioned that you had lunch with somebody special during that time from that profession.
Yes, I was working for an engineering company in Houston, and they were owned by a British company, and one of my positions was public relations, so I worked a great deal with the British consulate. And it was during that time that Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip came over, and they put on a luncheon for her down at the Space Center. And 3 people from our company were invited to bring themselves, of course, and their spouse. And so Gail and I went, and the tables were set up, 9 people at each table, and our president sat with the Queen and Philip, and then we sat with the Robert Fellows, who was her private secretary. And Gail sat right next to him, and his wife was the daughter of, not the daughter, the sister of Di, Princess Di.
Oh.
So you can imagine Gail just probed him and probed him. What all's going on? How much does she pay? It was very interesting.
How did you decide to move to Epworth?
In 2011, we were having some medical problems and decided we needed to get out of the house maintenance and the cooking and all that. So we went online, received about 50 brochures from organizations similar to Epworth. And we visited 2 or 3 places in Ohio where Gail's sister lives, a couple in Texas where her daughter lives, and then Arkansas, of course. And then a friend from Oklahoma said, try Oklahoma. So we went online, found Epworth, came over here. Nothing was compared to what Epworth had. It was just beautiful.
Awesome.
Wonderful experience.
And so you came in with the new wing, the East Wing.
Yes.
Just at that time. Well, I was going to ask you about your life-changing event, but you already covered that. And after that, everything else is insignificant.
That's true. Yes.
So thank you for your service, and thank you for your time today. It's been great.
It was a pleasure. Both of them, in the service and this. Thank you.